this is Sierra and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another stories and hidden stories inside of Hit the Target attacks. As you can tell, there are two attacks that I want to do, needed to catch up on. The only reason I waited was because, well, this story needed to have a conclusion, and I didn't want to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, so I put them both into this. As you could probably tell what's going to happen. Yeah. And you can tell from the title of this video. Yeah, this title is Barnaby's Torment. I wanted to leave a note that this perspective is based on Barnaby during the events of 10 years later, episode 749, up to the end of Impossible Choice, 760. This story will be sad and perhaps painful to read or listen to. So if you are sensitive to seeing animals in pain or the chances of them dying, and I know some of you more, you might not want to see this one. You might want to skip it. Just remember that this isn't canon. Like, none of these are canon unless Stampy says otherwise. But yeah, I'm not expecting Stampy to say anything. So, yeah. Just me having a little fun. Let's get into this. It was another bright and sunny day inside of Stampy's lovely world as Barnaby woke up on his loft, feeling the soft bed underneath his paws, as he yawned, hearing Stampy outside on the balcony, as he looked out his little window. It wasn't much of a view, since it was a plain wall, but it was a perfect template for a doggy imagination to go wild. He turned as he heard his master climbing up the stairs, seeing the happy feline face looking back at him, as he stood at his command. The dog followed his master obediently, as they went over to the love garden, as he teleported to his master, knowing it was just another day in the lovely world, and excited to be with his doggy friends. He wasn't tired of being around them, especially when Stampy went off to do his building, and sometimes playing in the Funland, with the latest minigame at the time. Today, the cat was planning to make a little monument for the fact that he had spent 10 years on this world. Barnaby wasn't sure what he meant by that, but he was happy for his master. He watched as the cat led him right to the doghouse as he teleported inside first, going to the main area before freezing. As he saw Viva Dash in the room, the cat rushed him outside and told him to sit. He obeyed. He didn't have much of a choice, so he desperately wanted to help his master. He knew far too well that it was safer for him to stay here. Barnaby listened as he heard minecarts go down the tunnel before the rumble faded, unsure of what was happening, wanting desperately to get up and go, but his master had told him to stay. Stampy trusted him to keep an eye on things, trusted him to defend the doghouse if he needed to. The sun finally set as he waited, hearing the distant growl of a zombie in the distance, a clink of bones somewhere in the town, as the dog shuddered, remembering the story of Gregory, how he'd been killed by his cruel skeleton. The night drew on, before he noticed a light coming from the distance. Had he really been here the entire night? Where was Stampy? Where were the other dogs? Flippy, Luna, Gregory Jr. He didn't know, but he had to stay. He had to obey. He looked up at the sound of footsteps, wagging his tail on instinct before realizing that they weren't coming from Stampy, as he let out a low growl as his target and Viva Dash approached him. Cautiously, he bared his teeth as his target tried to nudge him down the path before stopping at Gregory's tree, for Viva shook her head, taking something out of her pocket, as the dog stopped growling, as the two of them stepped back, away from him. Were they leaving him alone? Stampy had to be close. Where was he? Where were the other dogs? Should he get up and fight? He couldn't disobey his master like that. He couldn't fail a simple request. Splash! Glass shattered, and Barnaby felt something funny and wet on his fur before it dug into his skin as he whimpered, looking down to see the neon green particles bouncing off him as he felt prickles of darts tearing through him. They weren't quick either, but slow and gradual, as the two villains stared at him for a moment before Viva nodded over at Hit the Target, tossing an empty bottle beside the dog, and they both walked away. The dog barked and growled angrily, but those barks returned to defeated whimpers. It hurt so much, but he had to stay. He had to obey. Stampy finally did return, as he looked over Barnaby, as the dog saw a little concern from the corner of the dog's eye, as the dog whimpered, looking away from him before finally looking up, forcing himself to stop whimpering. He had to be brave for his master. Surely whatever the villains had done to him would go away. It had to! But it didn't go away. In fact, as every day passed, it grew worse and worse. The prickling turned into piercing, felt his whole body was being crushed from the inside out as he looked up at his master every morning, trying to do his best, trying to be a good boy. He was a good boy, wasn't he? Sometimes, though, Barnaby couldn't take it, as he used to, sleeping most of the day, even in the doghouse, comforted by some of the dogs even, who seemed to understand his pain. They knew something was wrong. Stampy had to be right. Stampy had to, right? He was just lazy and old, but he knew that wasn't true. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't being lazy. He was dying. A couple of months passed after the incident with the two villains as the dog looked up at his friend weakly, up in his bed in the loft. As Stampy helped him up, he followed him, feeling exhausted as he trudged along. After a couple of moments passed, the cat finally found some signs in the love garden, telling him that Barnaby had been poisoned and would slowly die, and if the cat wanted a cure, he'd have to meet the two at the castle. Barnaby yawned when the cat asked him this, unsure himself, but knowing full well his time was running out. He couldn't hold up forever. Whatever was happening to him was killing him, gradually. He followed his master towards the castle. As a dark, deadly thunderstorm raged, the dog seeing creepers toward the castle. As Stampy retreated, seating him safely in the stupendous restaurant as he waited for his master, hearing the rumble thunder until he heard nothing. A good several minutes had to have gone by before Stampy finally found him. Taking him towards the castle, the dog followed him, more reluctantly now. How could his master be so sure he could trust those two? They had been the ones who had poisoned him to begin with. Surely they'd have some sort of scheme up their hands. As he sat down by the ladder, leaning down, hearing Stampy's frantic voice downstairs. Finally, after what felt like forever, the three of them came up to greet him. Stampy told him about how the two villains would cure him, that he was pushed towards some sort of machine by Viva. He couldn't help but give her a warning growl, but didn't push it any further. The cat seemed to trust them. Whatever he had done seemed to be working. As he heard the doors closing, tense, feeling something being slashed on him. As the pain faded away, his strength returning as the doors opened. The dog, seeing his master as he stood, and ran over to him, surprised at how energetic he was. Had Viva really done it? He watched as Stampy took something from some sort of machine. As the cat walked out, saying something along the lines of the Funland no longer being his. That didn't matter to the dog, though. His master was happy again, and he was alive. What more could happen now? Everyone got what they wanted. Even the villains, he supposed. Surely that would be enough, and the two would leave them alone. Only time would tell, of course, as Barnaby stood by his master's side as he looked over at the sign in the Funland before going back to town. The dog didn't look back. He didn't need to. That's going to be it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one, whenever that might be.